All right. I'm here with Ben Brickweg, and he is the founder of Exitworthy and also a law firm and Sagewood. How's it going, Ben?
Oh, living the dream, sir.
Beautiful, beautiful. We were just talking about your elevation. I'd like to touch on that before we get into this. Where are you right now?
I am coming to you live from 8,243 feet above sea level. We're 27 miles southwest of Denver, up on top of a mountain. Outside today, it's a bluebird day, the one you see in the Colorado TV commercials.
Awesome.
But it snowed a foot last week out of nowhere up here. But we're
Wow.
we're digging out.
Wow. That's a rarity. I don't think that we've had anybody over 8,000 feet on the pod before. So that's a record. That is a record. So let's dig into this. Before we get to kind of the tactics and everything, let's talk about your background. Like, how did you get started?
So I'm not a guy that's been on the internet doing silly dances and learning that, keywords of business valuation and sell a company are the things that help you sell offers. Really, this all traces back 25 years ago to when I was in my late teens when we had a family business. My mother started an education and training company in the healthcare space. I worked in there, the typical little founder's kid. We might have to explain some of this for the audience, but there are these things called VHS cassettes, and we would put them in this thing and mail them in the physical mail to break rooms so radiology techs could get their continuing ed credits. And this was the days, right? I mentioned the VHS. So this was before YouTube, before streaming video.
Uh-huh.
And we were positioned in this place where we should have exited for a lot of money. We had the content, we had the systems ready to go. And an offer came in, an 8-figure offer. And mind you, you can probably tell by my background and where I am, I'm kind of a redneck boy. So, you know, late teens me, I had my diesel truck picked out in the hunting land, and I'd watched my mom work her butt off. I
Mhm.
worked like crazy in this company, and we thought the exit was the next logical thing. That's what's going to happen. We even had an offer, and for a whole lot of reasons that we can't get into today, that maybe belong on a therapy couch some other day, but the exit blew up, and that
Mhm.
lit a fuse for me as I've gone on and I started and founded companies. Um, I was working in the marketing consulting space, doing pay per click and early adoption of CRMs back in the day, and ended up
Mhm.
stumbling into a business broker's office back in Minneapolis, and found myself in a job there. We were moving to Google, moving out of the newspapers, doing all these things, and I got to learn the business the hard way. I shared an office, and I still talk to this guy today, so I won't mention him by name. But my boss back then, the managing partner of that firm, my joke is that his desk sat at a 45-degree angle, so any file that hit it, boom, landed on mine. So 20-some-year-old Ben who thought, oh, cool, I've got a marketing gig. Well, I was a little errand boy, we'll say, and just in that first year, due to the size of the firm, I I touched over 200 deals, and that's
Wow.
financial recasting, writing pitch books, being in the room when brokers had deals blow up. And there's an adage in this space that every deal dies 9 times. Well, as those deaths were happening, I happened to be in the office or the operating room, maybe first listening, then contributing, and then pretty soon the brokers would come in and the boss wasn't there. And well, guess what? I'll answer the questions for you. So
Yes.
we had that. Um, I had a lawyer come up and screw up a deal for us one day. And I said, well, screw it. If that idiot can go out, completely misunderstand how valuation works, negotiate this Main Street transaction like it's a Wall Street deal,
Mhm.
screw it all up, and then have the stones to send an invoice for 15 grand and people blindly listen to him, like, screw that, I can do that.
Mhm.
So I made the impulsive decision to go to law school. And, um, I came out of that 12 years ago. I've now been on all sides of deals. I think at last count, we've helped over 2,000 clients with things related to building a exit-worthy business, um, transactional work, whether it was on the law firm side, whether it was on the brokerage or intermediary side. I've bought companies, sold companies on my own account. I'm, I'm still invested in a handful of companies, so I've seen it and I live and breathe it. And I think it all started when that little fuse got lit when Mom's company didn't get the exit that she had worked so hard for.
Mm. Yeah, that's a tough one. Having the rug pulled out at the last minute as a family business is definitely, it's a great, like you said, spark to get you going, for sure. And 200 deals in a year is like that's like a MBA law school all crammed into one. I mean, you're literally seeing the actual meat grinder, like how it works.
We're inside the sausage factory, right? And
Yeah.
Steve, I'll tell you, I got more out of that first 12 or 18 months over there than I did both in business school and in law
Hmm.
school. It's real world, and it showed me a lot. I hated them at the time, for what it's worth.
Hmm.
Like, these guys worked me to death because I was that junior analyst. I was the web designer. I was getting us into Salesforce, out of a locally hosted CRM, um, and then also we pulled out of the newspapers. We had the back page in both the Minneapolis and St. Paul class or newspaper in the business section. Every Sunday we would run ads of the businesses for sale. I'm like, guys, there's this new thing called Google.
Yeah.
We can go in and optimize for it. But um, I hated them, but I love them now. Like, I learned so much.
Yeah. Yeah. That is super, super valuable to be like seeing all the flaws, especially like the mistakes that people make, like that attorney coming in. And there was a pod that we did a long time ago where somebody likened like a general attorney coming into an M&A deal being like a surgeon coming in to brain surgery instead of a brain surgeon. Like they just say, "Hey,
Yeah.
I do these general operations, so I think I can do brain surgery on you."
Yeah, it's like I'm a dentist, but the same part of the body. I'm sure I can figure out how to fix that.
Yeah, 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 exactly. So I think that that's super valuable that you got to see that sort of kind of messed up situation happen, because that happens every day, all day, during these types of deals. So let's kind of start unpacking some of this here. Let's talk about, after that really good in the trenches few years where you're learning everything and you went to law school. What were some of the first few examples that you saw that were like the big ones, the ones that were really exciting to work on, and what were some of those structures like?
I think there's a lot. I'm actually writing a book on this now that we're calling Tales from the Trail. And it's 27 stories about, it started off as like good stories, what to do, but so many of them were the train wrecks and the bear traps. I
Mm-hmm.
think the piece that stuck with me is that good businesses sell all the time for human reasons. In the public perception, people think that, companies are selling because they're bad. And that was a tough one to overcome. Other things, the the family owned businesses really had a special place in my heart. They still do. Um, I've seen too many people get stuck in this private equity trap of, you know, this firm's come in, they're promising we'll make up numbers here, right? But they're going to pay 8 or 10 times EBITDA. They're going to give me this huge payday, but then it gets bad. You get through. Ironically, I mentioned dentist before. I had a dentist client a few months ago who had sold out to the private equity backed roll up firm, got a great multiple on paper, but the doc had ended up signing these documents without getting the right attorney. And by the time I saw it, it was too late. And the way we say it here is more of, you need to hire a lawyer. They need to know what they're doing. You can't hire the attorney who represented your idiot brother-in-law in his DUI case last year just because the website says that the attorney also does business. And this was a great example. This doc got stuck, and I'll make up numbers here just so I don't get in trouble, but call it 60% cash at closing, 40% rollover equity. And this had happened in the years right before COVID. What Doc didn't realize is that there were no more rights to do hiring. So in the dental industry, there was problems bringing in hygienists, and in the COVID mess, nobody wanted to be a dentist anyways. We'll say it that way. But she was in here not able to hire hygienists. She was down 2 hygienists, had to do the work of them because, oh, well, the fine print of the private equity document said that when you sell, you lose the autonomy to interview and hire your own people.
Mm.
And then we got to looking more, and she's like, I just want to be done. I can't do this anymore. I've got led to health problems, medical problems. And I'm like, okay, well, let's look at quitting. That's what she wanted to do. Oh, well, the contract not only said, will you lose your 40% rollover equity if you quit early? Oh, but then there was this pesky clawback provision where they would come back and come at the 60% she'd already received. And it was, a modern day version of indentured servitude. And I don't say that lightly. That's not hyperbole. This is what was happening. If she decided she didn't want to go to work or couldn't work, private equity would come clawing back in a bad way.
Yikes. Yeah. I've I've heard stories about that, and that's really unfortunate that there's actual PE firms out there doing that. And I know that that's not something to take lightly, especially when you're looking at the legal documents from a lawyer's perspective, and you've seen that somebody else kind of messed it up. It's really uncomfortable to have to communicate that. And I've had friends that have had situations like that happen where the fine print really got them, usually in earnouts where there's sort of, uh, hey, we're going to change what the earnout looks like. We have the right to change the metrics here, and just so happens you didn't hit it, kind of things like that. So a lot of issues on the legal side for sure. And I want to talk about the prepared aspect. It's a good segue here. What are some things that you've learned that people could do today if they're operating a business, thinking about selling? What are some things that they could do to set it up to be prepared for an exit?
Well, and I think the foundation of that is important. Of when it's time to exit your company, it's not just like selling a house or a used car, right? Where you throw an ad up and
Hmm.
someone's going to come buy it. I think one of the pieces I coach owners on regularly is I don't care if you plan to exit, you think you're going to keep it forever. I can unequivocally 100% tell you you're going to exit your business someday. Whether that's feet under you walking out, high fiving everybody, or whether it's feet first when you're wheeled out on a gurney because you refused to acknowledge this. So build something, and we use the term exit worthy, build something exit worthy from the beginning. And when I first started in the business, it was weird. There's almost this stigma on exiting because it equals retirement, and then soon after that, death. You're quitting. You're done. But now I sound like an old fart saying this, right? But the new generation of these whippersnappers, uh, and there's a tipping point. I find it to be 50 or 55 years old right now. If you're above that, exit still can seem to be a stigma. Under that, we're like, hell yeah, we built this business so we can sell the damn thing. But just because you are accepting of the future sale or the inevitable sale or wanting to sell it doesn't mean you've done the things. So the idea is be ready from the beginning. And in our world, we go over proprietary 16 steps that we look at to say you should be ready now because the most valuable businesses are the ones that owners want to sell the least, right? Because if you set it up properly, you have that option of being the chairman, the chairwoman, running the business remotely, absentee, and you've got a steady stream of cash flow that you can decide that you can sell when you want to. So we always kind of keep our eye off on that target in the horizon. And I mentioned I'm above Denver in the mountains, so everything here is an obnoxious mountain metaphor. I'll try to be light on them today, but my another book I launched recently was called Peak Exit, and like we want people to achieve that peak exit when the time is right, not because they have to, or God forbid, not because their wife and kids have to sell it because the owner died and never did anything about it.
Hmm.
And I've seen too many of those too, of just you didn't take the time to prepare. And
Hmm.
I know I didn't even answer your question there, but that's kind of the frame of it. And from there is, you need to build something that's attractive to a new buyer. And when we look at it, um, I look at a three-part valuation model here when we're looking at becoming exit worthy, right? I think anybody can look at 3 years of financials and try to project out a multiple of cash flow based on these rules of thumb or other industry things. But I think that does a big disservice to the owners because you're missing two parts. I mean, the value based on paper is one, but you're missing, is the business sellable? Is it sexy? Will buyers look at it and say, hey, I want to do this? And the example I give is I can show you two different businesses with the exact same financials, like down to every little cent, every expenditure, every profit margin. But that doesn't tell you how many hours a week the business owner works in there. It doesn't talk to you about customer concentration or the hidden vendor concentration. It doesn't address all of these sellability aspects that we look at. And so we look at it, and here comes the first mountain metaphor. You ready? So we call this the value mountains, and the idea is we teach there's three different mountains based on the size of cash flow. I think size of cash flow is much more important than industry
Uh-huh.
when it comes to what multiple range you'll get. So the valuation, the first part, what do your financials say, picks the mountain, and the mountain gives you a nice range of multiples. But how far up that mountain can you go? And the more sellable, the higher your S score, the further up that you can go. So you can start getting higher and higher. And I've got this little picture where we have the premium peak, and it's up here. There's a little flag planted on the top. I've drawn it so many times on the whiteboard that over in my conference room, I finally printed it out. But the idea is the value picks your mountain, your sellability picks how high in the mountain you can climb. And then the third factor we call transferability, which is like the mechanics or the legal structures in place, insurance, working capital, all of these things that even after the buyer says, yes, I want this, that they usually forget about, that pop up in due diligence. And so transferability is that path up the mountain as high as you want to go.
Nice. Transferability. I like that because there's so many factors, especially now with LinkedIn and social media, where personal brand is built in to a lot of these businesses. Like you were talking about the young up and comers that are, selling through Instagram, and all their face is the brand. And I think that there's a lot of benefits and of course downsides to that when you're trying to sell and the transferability is low on something that is fully baked around an entrepreneur's content that's personal to them and everything. And that's just such a more common one that I'm seeing nowadays, that good for business, bad for transferability. And there's just kind of a balancing act there, figuring out how you can make it, portable and transferable to get that valuation up. But it's a good kind of segue into negotiations. You've seen hundreds, probably maybe close to thousands of these. What are some of the steps that people take normally that are good for negotiation when it comes to like multiples, whether it's like a very transferable business or something like that? And then what are some mistakes that they can make around valuation?
Oh, mistakes are so much more fun because people will actually pay attention to those. Um, we touched on the PE thing,
Yep.
right? And the reality is that whatever the private equity guys offer you in writing in your letter of intent, it's
Hmm.
not going to stay the same. And people will bark about that, and I'll get hate mail now. Like, that's not how we run our PE firm. Yeah, bullshit. Yes, you do. Um, so the solution to that, well, one, don't sell to PE because I told you one horror story. I got dozens more. But I think make a conscious decision on, would you rather have 60% of a big number now with a chance to get more? Or would you rather have 80 or 100% of a smaller number, but you're not selling your soul to PE? And I'm seeing a very conscious movement among owners that are like, I don't want to sell to those pricks in PE. We don't want to do it. We've seen it, and everybody now seems to know somebody that's gotten the short end of the stick. So either don't work with PE or be very clear. So when we're working with, it's Sagewood, when we're engaged with a seller and PE comes in, we get very detailed in the LOI, and sometimes it'll scare off the PE guys, but we want to talk about all those hidden things. We're going to talk about the transition period and post close duties. We're going to talk about due diligence timelines. We chunk it up into 30-day increments. PE loves to come in and throw a 90, 120, and they've seen 150 days of, oh, we have exclusivity, so we can dig into the business. Meanwhile, they're wearing their Sunday best until due diligence is done and they drop the hammer on the price reduction. So make sure we have a measured and controlled flow of information during due diligence, give them 30-day targets. Um, and that not only keeps the PE guys on track, but it keeps the seller on track. Sellers get bored, they get anxious, they have regret. That's the surprising one. Um, you know, they spend 90 days thinking about what the hell they're going to do next, and they oftentimes will change their mind. So we we build in those hurdles in due diligence, um, and otherwise try to at least set a flag in the ground now that says, this is the piece. We don't want to push them off to negotiate later.
Mm-hmm. And there's so much to be said about like that 90-day increment. What I've learned from talking to so many different people about this is there's also like the lifestyle creep of, if their personal budgeting, let's say, where they're at, call it spending 50,000 a month or something on their lifestyle. They sell for $10 million. They don't actually do the math quickly to realize that it's not just go live on a beach and hang out, because it's their lifestyle doesn't line up with that number. And I think that there's so much value to working on strategy beforehand that people don't really take into account of like that 90-day period, like you mentioned, is a really good window to think about, where all of a sudden maybe they realize their math was off and they're like, oh shit, like I think I miscalculated here. My lifestyle actually needs to drop, you know, by 50% in order for this to make sense for 10 years of being able to, not work. And there's so many small details like that that people don't really take into account. So I just wanted to like reiterate that midway through there, while it's still processing and they get a lump sum, but don't really kind of span it out over a long period of time, can really mess up a
And
close.
and we dig into that from the beginning. We
Hmm.
we will not take a business to market without exploring the personal financial situation of an owner.
Hmm.
And we learned it the hard way. And I think it happens more on the Main Street deals than on the larger deals, right? If you're out making many millions of dollars a year in earnings, uh, I would hope that you've engaged a wealth manager and not the financial planner in the strip mall. And but we had a deal up in the resort towns up in Summit County here in Colorado, with we'll just call it a business in the trades, and call it earning $300,000 a year, having a nice lifestyle, nice house, enough money for a surf shack down in Costa Rica that was almost done perpetually. And the business like that traded at the time at a 4 times multiple. So you're making 300 a year, you get $1,200,000. That's great, right? I'm rich, I'm a millionaire. Well, things start to unravel a little bit by the time you pay your advisory fees, your legal fees, and then you've got to pay the government. I haven't found a way to get out of that, um, at least not one that keeps you out of jail. But you're sitting about half of that, so your 1.2 turns to 6 or 7 pretty quickly. That's only 2 years worth of lifestyle.
Hmm.
And even if you take the old models of 3 or 4 or 5% withdrawal rate, then it becomes even worse, right? You don't have enough. And this guy wrote a little check to finish the surf shack, all these things, and 6 months later he's calling me asking for a job. Like, well, what do I do? Can I come work with you and sell businesses? I'm like, no, you're a shitty financial manager. We can't have you. But but ever since then, we said, look, at the beginning, I need to know how important are the proceeds of this business to your lifestyle
Hmm.
post sale. Do you have a financial planner? Do you have a tax planner? Do you have a you know CPA working on you? And one of my favorite lines there is, oh, you've got a tax preparer. Well, that just means they're working for the government, not for you, even though you pay them. But what do you need? What does it mean? And one of my favorite places to be is helping somebody sell a business. And the way I ask it is, hey, if this all blows up and the business just burns to the ground tomorrow and we can't sell it, are you fucked? Like, can you live?
Hmm.
And when the answer is, oh no, I'm good. We've got a plan in place. There's so many more options, but we both know that's not how it works. Entrepreneurs are very bad at saving and investing. Like we're running, and I'll make fun of them because I am one, right? I'm in so many directions here too, but we're always running, chasing something. We can fix something, but taking the time to build the plan is fantastic. And to circle back on this concept, if you get ready a few years beforehand, usually 3 to 5 years of planning with somebody that knows retirement wealth, this concept of fractional family offices that are popping up is fantastic.
Hmm.
But we get our clients connected there at the very beginning because it's so important. I'd rather know it's a problem now and put off the sale. And for an intermediary or broker type to say this, I'll get hate mail for this too. I'd rather have you wait 3 to 5 years to sell your business and come back than to have you go through it, to have my team go through it and get to the finish line where you say, "Oh, I can't sell for that." We have a client dealing with that right now of the market value just isn't enough, and his price expectations are so high that we're getting offers. It's funny how this works, right? We're getting offers all at the place where I told him it would come,
Hmm.
but not at his bigger number. And it's not that far apart in terms of the absolute numbers, but it's a world apart for him. He can't afford to sell where the offers are coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that takes us to the finale. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell Ben 10 years ago?
What did I tell Ben 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Oh man, stick to it. I think there's a lot of there's a lot of chatter out there. I think acquisitions has become the popular thing, especially in the online marketing world. Somehow I have this client base that a fair amount of them are in the digital space, coaching and what we used to call high ticket sales, and we're taking them out of the make money online mode to use the internet and AI as tools in other businesses. But there's a couple of influencers in there that have helped the space, and there's a couple of that have hurt.
Mm.
So I think really, man, maybe it's time for me to stop being quiet and do more of these, do more podcasting, get out and spread the word, because no matter who's giving you the messages or how they're training you their way of doing something, the reality is still that 4 out of 5 business owners who are out there who spent years, a decade, decades building something, they're not going to sell their company. And the the reality is you've got to go plan, you've got to prepare. I don't want to see people go through what my family went through. And really, we have a little mantra in here that as we've turned this corner to, instead of staying in the trenches doing things while others talk, I start talking. And we're going to help 1 million owners, whether that's through viewers that come through your podcast or people that read some of my books or digest some of my content and training. I want people to know the real story, not the buzzword friendly story. So we call it the Million Owner Mission. And the acronym of that, MOM, is a throwback to the family business that we weren't able to sell. So sorry,
Nice.
Mom, but I'm telling the story because I don't want it to happen to anyone else.
Very nice. And where can people learn more about it?
Uh, right now, come over to exitworthy.com. We're creating things all over the place here. I teased you with the value mountains and the 3 phases of valuation on the VST triangle. So come on over to exitworthy.com. We've got some free resources, and then we offer. I can't help all these business owners one on one, but we've got some training and assessments to at least help you as an owner get the information that you need to make the right decision. Not just some talking head on the internet, not the cold calling commission breath broker, but really based on my almost 20 years of brokerage experience and 25 since the exit that wasn't meant to be.
Hmm. Nice. And where can people connect with you?
I've got a site. I'm at benbrickweg.com. It talks about some of the projects that I'm doing and ways that we can work together one on one if it makes sense.
Right on. Well, wherever you guys are listening on iTunes or Spotify, the links that Ben mentioned will be in the show notes. But thank you so much for coming on, Ben.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Steve.